are the gap year Celtics going to hit the 40-20 mark?
Yeah, I mean, there's a chance, right? What are they now? They're 19 and 11. They're going into a 4 game, 5 game. It's 4 games on the West Coast, 4 game West Coast swing. All teams they're playing are sub 500. I'm okay. I think that, they can come out of this potentially rounding up to an 8 game win streak. But we're talking another 30 games, and anything can happen in 30 games. You can go on a losing streak, you can go on a winning streak. I'm confident that they're going to be close, right? I'm not sure they're going to get to 40-20, 35-15, maybe. I mean, look, they've already lost 11. So we're saying, are they going to lose 8 of their next 30 at most? That's a really tall order. That's tough, man. I mean, if you look at the way they've been so far, whenever they've lost a few, they always find a way to bounce back. That's kind of been a staple of the Missoula system over since he's been there. Really, like even when this team was like at its best, they never lost more than 2 games in a row. I think that was like a really big talking point at some point last season. Was like, dude, they never dropped more than 2 in a row. It's hard to see this team being that resilient, but it's also not hard to see them snapping losing streaks after 3 games because just because of how they play and how they muck things up, I'd be close to 40-20. I don't know if I'm going to be 100% now. I know you've been looking at the schedule, so where are you sitting with it?
Yeah, so we really kind of survived the hard part of our schedule. We're in the middle of this stretch right now where we're just basically playing under 500 teams in a row. And a lot of the games, even the West Coast trips, they're just not hard games. I do expect maybe a little pushback in like that Clippers game or the Kings game. One of those games is going to be competitive. I'm not sure which one, but really all we got to do is make it to January 7th where we start to play Denver, and then, a couple days later we'll play the Spurs. But even after that, it lightens up. So 21-8 is still on the table. It's just, do you believe that this team has played their best basketball yet, or are they still getting better? Because if they're still improving and still getting better, there's no reason to think that, hey, they already finished the hard part of their schedule and they survived. Why wouldn't they be able to hit this 40-20 mark?
I think it's not so much getting better. I think it's having everybody performing at the same time. If you look right now, it's been Josh Minot had a really hot start. He forced his way into the starting lineup. As he called off, Jordan Walsh got hot. As Jordan Walsh has started to call off, Hugo and Luca have started to get hot. And it's the production of these rotation guys that have kept them consistently good. But the next step is like everybody is figuring out how to produce at a consistent rate. And I think that if you get Hugo, Jordan, Josh, and Luca all finding like their level, I don't expect them all to be as ridiculously impactful as they have been at their best because that's unrealistic. You'll have games like that. You'll have games where you're not that level. Just because the difference between a role player and a star is consistency. The difference between a star and a superstar is elite consistency, right? Being elite at every single night at 1 to 3 specific things. I think that we're asking these role players to just be consistently good. And if that to me means we haven't seen this team at their best because it's been 1 or 2 guys at a time, kind of like tagging in your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn. We're going to do a week of me being good, then we're going to do a week of you being good, then we might have 6 weeks of 2 of us being good. I think that that tells me that we haven't seen this team at its best because there's still room for these role players to kind of find their level and become consistent. And that's the biggest jump for me is just once these guys can start producing, I don't know, let's say Hugo's best game would be 15-8, right? Or 15-10. Like I could see Hugo going for 15-10 in a game this year and being like, yeah, that's probably his best game of the year. If that's his best game, then 10-4 or 10-5 could become his like average night. And I'm just saying these numbers off the top of my head, but what I'm getting at is if you can consistently get to that level where that's your average production and everyone else around you is doing the same thing, role player wise, that's when we're going to see the team at their best. So I think there's still another level, maybe another 2 levels that this team can go to. We're getting elite production from Peyton Pritchard, Derek White. Those 2 guys have broke out of their slumps. They've really been consistent right now. Jalen Brown is what? 8 games with 30 plus points. If you stretch it back to the last 15, I think it's like 13-2 or 12-3, where he's gone 30 points or above, and then 3 games where he's gone below 30. It is now just about these role players kind of continuing to develop, continuing to push on, and finding a level of consistency. So yeah, I think there's room for this team to keep getting better.
There is room because there's two guys who have sucked all season who have finally kind of woken up and seem to have a spot. First off is Sam. He just found a shot. Like water found its level. It took long enough. And the other guy is somebody I've been hard on all year. And I read a very good article from someone I know talking about how he's basically untradeable right now. But Simons has been a lot better in the last 2 weeks. Like he actually looks like he can fit in on this team. He's not doing his crap where he's, loafing or not playing hard. He's, even boxing out, which is something crazy, or setting screens, because usually he's just Mr. Selfish. But that's two things where I'm like, if those guys are gonna play well, and then if Hugo's floor is like 10-4, plus with Walsh's defense and Minot, Minot's three is money. There's like a legit 6, 7, 8 guys that you can count on now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in the camp that Simons is untradeable at all. I actually think that this stretch he's having is making him more tradable because teams are going to be a little bit more interested, right? I read an article yesterday where it was saying that teams around the league are a little bit like, why are we going to absorb? It'd be around about 12.5 million now, maybe 13, 14 million because the pro rata on the contract. But why are we going to absorb double digit figures on Simon's contract for the next X amount of months of the season when we can just go and get him for nothing in the summer and negotiate a deal that works for us, right? And that's kind of the issue. But I actually think this stretch is making him more tradable. He has been good. He's been solid, super reliable. Sam, I don't know if I spoke to you about this. My take on Sam was always that his passes are coming from different places this year. He's not.
Yeah.
I remember doing the numbers. I wrote it in a newsletter a while back where it was like Peyton Pritchard, Jaylen Brown. No, sorry, Peyton Pritchard, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, and then I think there was two other guys were like very heavily involved in Sam Hauser's shots last year. He's what? I think he's at 93.5% of his shots are assisted, and he lost two of his biggest like shot creators last year, this season in Tatum and Horford. So, and then the other guys, I think Derek White and Peyton Pritchard were very high on that list, are in completely different roles where they're having to look for their own shot more than they were last year. So it's took Sam some time to adjust because the passes are coming from different places, the actions they're running to get him open because you don't have the elite playmaking that Tatum brings. That hasn't been there. So it has took some time. I try never to be like, oh, he's figured it out after one game because it was one game. Right now on this stretch, on this West Coast swing, if he averages 40% from deep across those games, maybe he has a stinker one night and then he gets hot one night and then a couple of games where he's just average. Yeah, he's figured it out. Right, it's not always going to be 8 of 7, 7 of 8 from deep. Sometimes it's going to be 2 of 5, and we're going to be fine with that. But yeah, I think that those two guys have played well, very well. I'm not on the don't trade Simons camp because you need a big man, and you need a big man far more than you need Simons. What I will say is, and I wrote about, I put something out about this the other day, was Simons, if you trade him, it's going to be really hard to find the depth at the guard position that you need. Because if you trade him, it's for a big man. In my opinion, I don't think you're making a deal unless it involves a reliable center coming back. But then who kind of steps into that guard role? Is it Bader Scheinman? Do you trust Max Schulger to step up and absorb minutes? Because I don't. So then you have to try and do another mini deal to bring in a guard. But then that guard needs to understand that once Tatum's back and Pritchard slides back onto the bench, where those minutes going to come from for you. So Simons is actually going to be more difficult to replace than first thought.
Yeah, unless you really are just into Baylor. But he's been so hot and cold all season. Like every great game, or you think he's kind of figuring it out, he'll take 2 steps back the next game. I mean, the only thing you kind of want to do is maybe just keep Simons around until Tatum comes back, and then everybody else's minutes are going to shorten anyway. And you kind of, rob Peter to pay Paul on that note. But at the end of the day, are they really going to be buyers at the trade deadline? I still think like they did all this work to get so close to get under this repeater. Why wouldn't they duck under with that extra 12 million. Like, why would they buy at this point?
And this is my point, right? You can trade for a big and still probably duck under that luxury tax depending on what level of big you go for. The hard part is trading for a big and then adding a guard. So there's two articles I read yesterday. I don't know if you've read them. The first one was by Steve Bulpett, and it was along the lines of like it was talking about Simons, it was talking about his like tradability, and I've kind of lost where I was going with this now. But the Bulpett article was really interesting because it was like, let me pull it up actually so I can read the quote. So it was on
Yeah, I'd like to hear that. Bullpet, we like around here.
Heavy on
He's the man.
Celtics. So you go over to Heavy on Celtics. I've just got to find it again because uh it's a few days old now. So if you just bear with me while we're finding it. What I will say is the other article that I read was from Sam Vecini on The Athletic. And Vecini, well, it was technically a J King article, but J King had kind of like been talking to Sam Vecini. And Sam Vecini was asked to name two like logical trade targets for the Celtics, right?
Okay.
And not logical as in logical that it makes sense for them to come, but logical that it could make sense for the Celtics. And he ended up doing like one that I would do and one that I wouldn't do. So the one that he wouldn't do was Anthony Davis. Duh.
Oh yeah,
I don't think
no.
any. But the one that he would do was Ayo Dosunmu from
Oh, that's
Chicago.
fun. That's
And
really interesting.
when you look at the contract value there, it's like 7.5 mil or something. So he's an expiring deal. So you'd be trading one expiring contract for another, but you'd be shaving like 20 million off. So obviously the idea there would be like you trade Simons for a big man and then you flip whatever you need to flip to bring in Dosunmu under the assumption that you're going to re-sign him in the summer and you have like a second string backcourt of Dasumu and Pritchard. And I actually hadn't considered Dasumu, but I actually don't think it's that bad either. Where you stand? Let me find this article. So where you standing on Dasumu?
I love that because I do think we need a big and another guy who can get a bucket, who can just do a lot of different things. I think we're two players away when Tatum comes back, not just one. My thing with the big man is, has Kata done enough to prove that he's a starting center in this league where you don't need a trade for a starting center? You just need a good backup like a Jalen Smith type.
No, I mean some people will argue yes, and I think that there's a world where you can do both, right? Like a backup center with Nimi as a starting five is fine. I think that you can be a very competitive team with having that additional defensive depth at the five. I just I've changed my tune on Nimi a lot this year. I'll come into the season super low. Didn't think he was going to be good enough to hang, just because he needed more development, not because he wasn't talented enough, but because he was still super raw. Now I'm kind of like, yo, this dude can hang. He can like he's a viable starting big man in the NBA. But the question you have to ask yourself is, do you see the Celtics winning a championship with Nimi as their starting five? If the answer is no, then no, you should not be building around him as your starting five. And that's kind of the mentality I'm taking is like, I can see the Celtics winning a championship with Nimi in the rotation. I do not see them winning a championship with him as their core big man.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way I'm kind of been thinking about it is you have to decide what you think of him like pretty soon because next year you're going to have to extend him or you're going to start thinking about getting rid of him. And if you trade, like, let's say, it's that pipe dream and they get Zubac, this dude's not going to be happy to be going back to the bench in his contract year, quote unquote. And you're not going to pay both Zoo and Kata because Kata's going to be up for around, 4 or 5 million at 90 90 million total for 4 or 5 years. So, I mean, he's going to get a decent, big man contract. It won't be over 100, but it's going to be in the 80 to 90 range because he's proven he's a starting center. So you kind of have to decide now, like, are we really going to get another big and then just dump him? Or have we invested enough in him where we can kind of have center by committee and let him be the starter?
And this is the thing, center by committee doesn't work when you're trying to win a chip. We saw the Celtics try and do that when Danny Ainge was in charge and Brad Stevens was head coach. It gets you to a certain point, but once that rotation starts to tighten, that committee starts to shrink, and now you're just left with two flawed bigs and a lot more kind of help responsibility on your forwards, and a lot of pressure on your guards. Now, the Celtics also don't have like a lockdown defensive guard. Derek White is exceptional, but he's carrying so much offensive load they're asking him to be that lockdown defensive guy as well is kind of unfair. They had that in Marcus Smart. They had that in Drew Holiday. And when Marcus Smart was there during his early years and they were centre by committee, you did have another guy that made it really difficult for the guys to even get into the paint in the first place. Now Boston do that in different ways this year. They've got a lot of nail help. They're rotating earlier. They pick up point switch. They peel switch off of guys that when they help out of the strong side corner. They do a lot of good stuff to limit the pressure that's put on Nimi, but it's also exploitable to a degree. I think over a 7-game series, you can figure out how to exploit that quite easily. Not easily, but consistently, repeatably, probably the better word there. So I do think that I'd prefer finding. I'm calling them an anchor big, and that's not anchor as in role where I want you to be slow footed and be, but somebody you can anchor your starting five around and be like, yo, this is our big man for the next 5 to 6 years. He's the guy we're pairing with Tatum and Brown, and we're saying this is our like front court rotation. I think you need that, and I think for all of the developments Nimi's got, for all of the stats that are saying how impactful he is, I'd love that impact off the bench with a big that comes in that's just a little bit more well-rounded, a little bit more polished.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm not sold on Nemi as a starter, but I just don't see like Brad has never spent on a big. Like, unless it's a unicorn like a KP type, which I don't even consider like traditional center. Like we always had him next to a center. We had him next to Horford or Cornette. Like, how often did KP play the five by himself? So I really could see Brad going to the bargain bin again and being like, okay, Robert Williams is at a discount right now. He could be Nemi's backup, and the two of them will equal one good center.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, the argument I'll push back on there is Brad never really needed to spend on the big. Al Horford was already there. Then he went and got KP that could play the four, could play the five. He already had Luke Cornett on the roster. So you didn't really need to when Brad moved into the front office, they didn't a big man wasn't the pressing need for them right there, and then it was wing depth, and then it was guard depth, and now it's the first time since he's been in like a decision making role where it's like, oh shit, now we need bigs. We lost Luke, we lost Kristaps, we lost Al. Coming into the season, I felt like it was like a no brainer that they'd be bringing in another center, and I get what you're saying. Like, hey, the only time we've seen him make a move for a big and actually part with assets was for KP, but that was the only time he ever needed to, because he already had the center rotation, like the foundation of that rotation in place when he moved into the front office.
My only pushback is you could have just paid Luke then. You could have matched that 12, 13 mil.
Yeah,
Because
for
let's
sure.
be honest, any starting center is going to make more than that.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean that the argument there is though you'd already took on Simon's contract, so
True.
at this point, yes, you would have paid Luke, and Luke would have been great, but would you have seen like what Luke's doing now in San Antonio? Do you think that's how it would have gone for him in Boston? Right? Is it and is Luke the guy that you build around long term? Because are you building around Luke as your championship anchor? Your net? No, you're not. And I think that that's kind of the argument people are going to push back with, especially if it's me, because that's what I'm going to be like. It's you didn't pay Luke 13 million to be your backup big because you can pay Nimi 3 or 4 million to do the same job. The hard part is finding that next guy to come in and kind of cement the floor.
And that's where I just keep racking because I'm like, do you really want a Jared Allen or a Nick Claxton? Like, it just doesn't seem like they're double, triple, quadruple the price of Nemi. And honestly, are they really that much better?
I just wish they drafted Derek Queen, man. And I know it is almost impossible to get up that high to pick him up, but Derek Queen has been
Oh,
ridiculous,
he's
man.
he's such a freaking awesome.
And then
He's
if you want to go to like where Boston were in the pick range, like Ryan Kalkbrenner would have been great. I think he could have really made an impact. Like, I wouldn't have been upset with Kalkbrenner being in the starting five. He started the year really well. Kind of fell off a little bit, but he started the year really well. You could have gone with who did the Kings pick? The Kings picked a big as well, and we haven't seen him much, but he was somebody I was high on during the draft process.
okay.
Let me have a look at the Kings picked. Let's go to the Kings roster. Kings roster.
But will like even like the most mild Nemi fans say that that person's that much better than Nemi? And it's like Not this year.
Not this year, but you could have had you wouldn't need to be shopping right now because you've got a developmental big coming off the bench with Nimi starting. And I think
True.
that's the hard part, right? Like, I've got no problem with Nimi being a starter for the next 2 to 3 years. But once you're at, like, well, say two, once you've got the pieces in place to challenge for a championship, is Nimi the guy you want as your starting five in game 7 of the NBA finals? If the answer is no, then there's no point doing this exercise and you need to go and find somebody else. If the answer is yes, then cool. Find yourself a backup big and keep it pushing, right. But where do you stand? Game 7, NBA finals, championship ring on the line. Do you want Nemius Cater as your starting five?
I don't trust him not to foul or just make a bonehead play. And I love the guy. Like, I love how hard he plays, but he plays hard, not smart. And it really hurts him sometimes in big spots. I just don't know what Brad thinks. Cause like I said, I really kind of think Brad's going to extend this dude and kind of go the budget route, which is going to be frustrating to fans that are begging for Miles Turner or Portal or whoever big of the day is. It's like that's never been Brad's MO.
I mean, okay, so the first, just to round this out, it was Maxime Reynard who the Kings picked up that I liked as
I
well.
did like Reynard, yeah.
And like I say, he can't. We can't sit here and say it's never been his MO because he's never had to. It's never been a position he had to work on. When he was a coach, you can argue that he had some input with Danny Ainge, but Danny Ainge was always going to do what Danny Ainge did, right? And Danny Ainge valued centers and wings and guards, never bigs. We can't say the same for Stevens yet because he just hasn't needed to go and get a big. And when he did need to go and get one, he went and got Kristaps. So it's kind of like we have to give him a little bit of rope before we're like, that's not his MO because we just haven't he hasn't had the need to do that yet.
Yes. Just because he hasn't done it yet doesn't mean he doesn't plan on or will or won't. No, I totally agree with that. I'm just going by what we've seen so far. And like I said, they do need two things. They do need another big, whether it's a starter or a backup, and they do need another guy off the bench that's like either offense or like a defensive, like just, one guy that's going to take the load off of Derek White because he's like the only defender right now
Yeah,
besides Walsh.
Chris Dunn would be ideal, but that might happen. But depends
Yeah.
what the Clippers decide to do. I will say this before we wrap up and move on. Miles Turner is a very unlikely target. And the reason I don't see Miles Turner being a target is you just waived and stretched Damian Lillard for $25 million a year of dead cap money for the next 5 years to go and pick up Miles Turner. You picked up Miles Turner to show Giannis that you're still interested in being competitive. Trading him 6 months, 4 months, 5 months into his first season with the team just tells Giannis that you guys aren't serious, right? You made a mistake, another mistake. Your roster building ability is completely fallen flat. You've got no idea how to build around him. If if the Bucks trade Miles Turner so soon after picking him up, they're basically telling Giannis to request a trade. That's my opinion. I don't see how you can waive and stretch a guy, eat so much, like 25 million in dead cap a year for the next 5 years, to then sign the guy and then trade him 6 months later and not expect your star player to be like, what the fuck? So yeah,
No,
for
just be
that reason, I'm like,
incompetence.
yeah, I don't see Turner as a viable trade option, not because he isn't good enough, but because it would be absolute um roster it would be ridiculousness. I don't know how else to put it. It would just be discombobulation to the highest form of combobulation. You know what I mean? It's just no, I don't want. It's not happening. If it does, great for Boston. I'd love Miles Turner in Boston. Can stretch the floor, can rebound, can run the rim, can rim run a little bit, can screen, can do a lot of good stuff. But no, I don't see that happening.
And the only other option is like the big fish option, which I don't know if you notice what's going on in Miami right now, but Khalil Ware, I mean, Khalil is Superman. And honestly, he's making Bam redundant, especially the way he can hit threes. He's stretching the floor. Eventually, it's going to come down to one of those two. I think they'll keep Ware unless they end up flipping him in a Giannis trade, but I just don't see Miami being able to win that sweepstakes. So I do think that like somebody like Bam will be available in the next 12 to 18 months. And that's the kind of big fish you wait for then.
Yeah, because he's the guy that all of a sudden you sign him and now you're a championship team. Now, again, it's kind of treading water. You need to keep everybody happy. You need to make sure that Tatum and Brown feel like the roster's moving in the right direction. And one of the biggest issues with the Heat right now is they've spent the last 2 to 3 years waiting on a big fish. And when you wait and wait and wait, what you need to realize is everyone around you is getting older. Their best years are kind of passing them by. If you wait 2 years for a Bam Adebayo and then it doesn't materialize, well, now Brown's 30 something, Tatum's coming up to 30 or just turning over 30. You've lost 2 years of both of their primes waiting for the big fish that never came. When maybe some very reliable and serviceable fish have swum right past you that you could have picked up and kind of developed. And you've seen how Boston are turning good players into very good players, very good players into great players. That would be my only concern when you're waiting for a big fish is there's a few teams around the league right now that are cautionary tales of when you have the assets, yeah, don't rush out to spend them, but also don't kind of be like, no, we're waiting for the perfect guy. Because sometimes, as you've seen with Giannis as well, that perfect guy will tease your interest to better his own position within a franchise. And so they should, right? The careers are short. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but what I am saying is it's very easy to get caught up in the let's wait to go superstar hunting. And then 2 3 years down the line, you're a worse team because people are older and that superstar isn't walking through the door.
No, and that's the scary thing. I just that's kind of where we're at because it's like, what the heck are they gonna do to get this team back to contention? I know we're the 3 seed right now. We have a little breathing room, but let's be honest. This is not a team that's gonna. They're like ninth in championship odds, even though they're third in the East. The
Well, it's the
reason why,
defense, right? Like it's the defense
yeah,
that's the issue. Where are they? If I like cleaning the glasses, the offensive and defensive ratings, mainly because it filters out garbage time. It's a little bit more. It's a bit cleaner in the way they do the calculation. And this has kind of been my argument when people are like bring Tatum back and this team they're a contending team. I'm offensively for sure, but Tatum when he's not at his best, which he won't be for arguably his entire season once he's back this year. If he comes back next year, I reckon take him to the All-Star break. And we've seen Tatum need that ramp up plenty of times. It'd be nothing new. But I don't think Tatum drastically improves the way the defense works. That's never like he's a great help defender, a great weak side defender, but he's not a guy that's going to take you from 18th or 19th defensive rating up to 5th. It's just not going to happen. Where are the Celtics right now? So the Celtics are defensively. Have I clicked on defense?
got to be in the 20s.
Over the last 2 weeks, they're fourth for
Okay,
defense. But
well,
that.
that's playing the Pacers and who else?
Yeah, if we do it over like the entire season, which is what I'm working on now, if we do it over the entire season, they are again factoring out. If we're factoring out garbage time, they are 15th.
Okay,
They're lower in the NBA stats one because it factors in garbage time during blowouts that they've been in. Cleaning the glass will just be like, right, it's garbage time. None of this matters because, you've got the fifth unit in, you've got a bunch of G League guys in there. So for minutes that matter, the Celtics are 15th in defense. Now, that's fine. You can go to the Eastern Conference semifinals with a 15th ranked defense. You could look yourself into an Eastern Conference Finals appearance with a 15. You're not winning a championship with a 15th ranked defense. I don't care what anybody says. You need to be top 10 in both offense and defense for me personally to believe in you as a championship team. So now that's only 5 spots. You only need to improve marginally. Now Tatum might be able to get you there, but even then, you're at the lower end because you're coming up against an Oklahoma City team that's 5th in offense, 1st in defense. You're coming up against let's have a look. Who else would you, if you were in the East, you'd be coming up against New York. Now, New York's another team that I don't believe in their championship odds right now because they're 2nd in offense, but 14th in defense.
mm.
Do you know what I
Kind of
mean?
same boat.
Same boat. San Antonio are 8th in defense, 6th in offense. They're a team that I think could be. You know what I mean? This is
You
what
want to
I'm
be
pointing
top
at.
10 in both. Like
Exactly.
that makes you legit.
Houston are among the favorites. 3rd in
Yeah.
offense, 5th in defense. it's hard to find. Like Detroit leading the East, eighth in offense, second in defense. Detroit are actually a sneaky, like people are sleeping on Detroit still because of how they've been in the last few years. Like they've arrived, man. They built around Cade really intelligently over the last 2-3 years, and well, 2 years really. Cleveland are even worse. They're 23rd in offense, 10th in defense. Like you need that balance, and there's plenty of time for the Celtics to figure that out, right? You're only trying to move up 5, 6, 7 spots defensively, and that's like where are they? So if they're 15th, they're allowing 115.6 points per 100 possessions. If they want to break into the top 10, they need to slide that down to 114.3. It's marginal gains, right? It's fractional, where it's like, oh, we need to allow 1.2 points per game less, and we're a top 10 defense. Now, Tatum could arguably get you there on his own, and then maybe you're a championship team. But the impact he'd have on the offense and the way the offense needs to rebuild around him, then with him being like, is he coming back and instantly having the ball in his hands? Is he coming back and instantly being the first option again? What does that mean for Brown? Is Brown going to continue to be the first option? Where does Tatum fit in? What does that mean for Pritchard? Is Pritchard moving back to the bench? Pritchard's production has been a big reason why the Celtics have been good over the last month. There's a lot of questions that need to be asked, and I'm like, dude, I'm not sold that this year is a championship year for that reason. And for that reason alone, I think that you need to focus on trying to find a big man and trying to develop everything around you.
Yeah, you got to think long term. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to have a lot of fun. I've been comparing this to like the 2016 Celtics team, like those Crowder, IT, like that just, they kind of overachieved, but then, you get smacked in the face once you face Cleveland in the Eastern Conference Finals. Like that really does seem what they're like. Or even like the Pierce and Antoine 2002 team that kind of, went toe to toe with the Nets for a little bit until they didn't. But besides that, I mean, there's no way that like people can think that this team's a contender when all the guys we lost and all the times we've had way better rosters than this and fell short. You're telling me that we're going to be able to do it now with these guys? It just seems like a fairy tale.
I mean, shit, the Miami Heat did it a few years ago. Do you know what I mean? They made a run to the finals, and I think Jalen Brown's having that type of Jimmy Butler-esque year, to be quite honest with you. I think that if this is what Jalen Brown's like in a regular season, he could put the team on his back during the postseason and really drag you as far as you want to go. Like we saw Miami do it. I think Jalen's having that type of year, but they're still lost in the finals. Just to put that out there.
Yeah.
So again, I do think that there's a lot that needs to be done. In terms of going 40-20, I'm going to give them 7.5 out of 10 on odds. What are you giving them?
I'm like 60-40. So I'm more so than not, but the only reason I'm not is cuz like just any kind of we've been so fortunate, knock on wood it stays this way. But like Brown's played essentially every game, White's played essentially every game, Pritchard's played essentially every game. Like that doesn't normally happen. Like Brown's played 70 games like once in his career. But he's on pace to do it this year, which I would love to see, and it's really going to help him when award season comes. But I just don't know if that's sustainable. But the schedule's in front of us. There's only a few hard games in there, and the East is so bad. This is the worst Eastern Conference we've probably seen in like 5 years. It helps so much that the Cavs all hate each other, and then the Magic just really can't figure it out because those are two teams that really should make the East like tough. Besides, obviously the Detroits and New Yorks. But besides Detroit and New York, it's kind of a cakewalk in the East. There's nobody that you fear playing on a night to night basis.
No, no one at all. I think the Knicks are still figuring things out. I think that the Cleveland Cavs have been a massive disappointment, to be quite frank. I mean, I don't think that's a stretch at all. Like these guys were absolute pace setters last year, and it's just not working for them right now. Shows you how important Ty Jerome was to that second unit as well, because it's just looked ugly when some of the starting guards have sat. I think Milwaukee have been another disappointment, but we knew that was coming, right? With that, I'm going to leave it there because we can pick up again tomorrow when we start recording. Now we're back into a rhythm. Everybody, make sure you're signing up to the Celtics Chronicle newsletter. Hit subscribe and like here, and we will catch you again tomorrow.
Peace.
Deuces.